Good day, everyone. Today we are going to talk about factoring equations that are in the ax squared plus bx plus c form. Okay? And there are many ways that you can do this out there. I'm going to teach you one way. Most books or most authors will teach you the guess and check method, and I personally think that that is the hardest method. I'm going to teach you a method called the grouping method, which I find to be fairly easy. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin with the equation 3x squared plus 8x plus 4. And we're going to factor this. But before we factor that, we need to know a little bit about trinomials or polynomials. There is a form called the standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. So we need to make sure that we know what each one of the letters is before we begin. And this is going to be really important later on when we talk about the quadratic equation and solving quadratics. Okay? So in this particular case, our a is equal to 3, our b is equal to 8, and our c is equal to 4. So we need to know what each one of the values are of each one of our letters in our standard form. Okay? So let's begin by going ahead and we're going to factor 3x squared plus 8x plus 4. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my problem so that I have more room to work. Okay, so here's how I do this. I take my a term and I multiply it by my c term. So 3 times 4 is equal to 12. Okay, so now I'm going to break down this 12 into all of its factored its multiplication pairs. So here we go. We have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. So these are all of my factoring pairs of 12. Okay? So now I need to now look at my b term, which is 8, and I need to ask myself which one of these 3 factoring pairs can create an 8 as my center term. Well, the only one right now that we have is 2 and 6. So we're going to rewrite our trinomial using 2 and 6 as our b term. So here we go. I'm going to rewrite this as 3x squared plus 6x plus 2x plus 4. If you notice that my 6x and my 2x when added together give me my b term. Okay? So now, once we've got this set up, we're going to group this first group and we're going to group the second group, and then we're going to do something that we learned prior to this video, and we're going to factor each one of our groups. So in my first group, I can pull out a 3x, which is my greatest common factor, and then 3x divides into 3x squared x times. 3x divides into 6x 2 times. So that we have now factored our first group. If you have factored this correctly, this group right here will be the same over here. And all we have to do now is ask ourselves, what do I take out of 2x plus 4 to get x plus 2? And we know that that is a positive 2. Okay? Now, the next step is we take our coefficients, the 3x and the plus 2, we're going to put them together. And we're only going to take one of our x plus 2's. And so there is your factored form of our original equation, 3x plus 8x plus 4. And you can check your answer by going ahead and foiling it. Well, 3x times x gives me 3x squared. 3x times 2 gives me 6x. 2 times x gives me 2x, and 2 times 2 gives me 4. And you'll notice this looks just like what we started off with. 6x plus 2x gives me 8x. So this is our original equation, so we factored it correctly. So the factors of this are 3x plus 2 and x plus 2. Okay, let's do a second one, a second example. Okay, here we go. We are going to do 2t squared minus 7t plus 3. Okay, if you would like to pause the video at this time, you can, but I'm going to go ahead and go on with this one. Again, I'm going to multiply my a times my b. So 2 times 3 gives me 6. I'm going to find my factoring pairs of 6. So I have 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. I'm going to ask myself which one of these pairs will give me 7t. I have this one here. So I'm going to rewrite this. 2t squared minus 6t minus 1t plus 3. I group, and now I factor. Well, out of my first group, I can take out a 2t. 2t divides into 2t squared, t times. 2t divides into 6t, 3 times. So I know that that is the smallest that I can do with that binomial. So I'm going to put this, and that means I need to take out a -1. So I put this together, 2t minus 1 times t minus 3. Okay, here we go, one more. Let's try another. Let's do 3n squared plus 14n minus 5. Okay, so here we go. 3 times 5 gives me 15. And if you'll notice, I'm not bothering that it's 3 times -5 because that doesn't have any bearing on this. Okay, so 1 times 15, 3 times 5, and I believe that's all of them. The only one that I can use that can make 14 would be this one. This time we're going to have to subtract them to get 14. So let's rewrite this. 3n squared plus 15n minus 1n minus 5. And doesn't 15 minus 1 give me 14n, which is my b term? So now I group, and now I factor. In 3n squared and 15n, we can take out a 3n. That's going to give me n plus 5. And over here, we know we've got that factor correctly. So we are going to just bring our n plus 5 over. And we know that we need to pull out a -1. Okay? And so now we can rewrite this as 3n minus 1 times n plus 5. Okay? So there we go. And that's how you factor a trinomial that has a leading coefficient greater than 1. So now let's solve some problems that include this. Okay? So our very first one we're going to solve is we're going to solve 3t squared minus 11t plus 10 equals 0. How do I know that these first problems that we just did up here, I don't have to solve them, I'm just factoring them? And how do I know that this one I have to solve? So whenever you see this equal sign, or equal 0 or equal some number, it means that it is an expression or an equation that needs you to find the zeros or find what we call the roots. Okay? So not only do I have to factor this one, but I also need to solve it. I need to find its roots. So here we go. So let's start off. 3 times 10 gives me 30. Now I find my factors of 30. 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6, and if you'll notice, that's all of my factoring pairs. So which one of these is going to give me my B term of 11? Well, the only one that can do that is the 5 and the 6. Because this is a negative 11, we're going to make sure that both of these are negative. So we're going to rewrite our equation. 3t squared minus 6t minus 5t plus 10. And doesn't negative 6t and negative 5t gives me 11t. Now I group, and now I factor. Well, this first group, I can pull out a 3t. It's going to give me t minus 2. Over here, we know that t minus 2 is our binomial. So I need to pull out a negative 5, because negative 5t gives me that, and negative 5 times 2 gives me positive 10. So this is now factored. 3t minus 5. T minus 2, and that is equal to 0. And so now we need to set up our two equations because we are solving this one. So now we have 3t minus 5 equals 0 and t minus 2 equals 0. We go ahead and we solve these equations. We're going to add 5 to both sides. So 3t is equal to 5. We divide by 3. And so t is equal to 5/3. And we add 2 to both sides. So t is equal to 2. Okay, so our roots or our solution for this equation is 5/3 and 2. Okay, so let's do another one. But let's make this one a function. Okay. So we're going to say f of x is equal to 8x squared plus 53x minus 21. And they want us to find the roots of this problem. Okay. So again, finding the roots or solving this is just like, I want you to think of this f of x. Let's just make it 0. So 0 equals 8x squared plus 53x minus 21. Well, here we go. We multiply our a times our b, which is going to give me 168. And don't panic, it's a big number, but we can still do it. Look at this. So 1 times 168, 2 times 84. Then I'd start at 3 times 56. I personally know that 3 and 56 through subtraction might give me 53. So I'm going to stop there and check to see if that pair works with me. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to rewrite my equation. 8x squared plus 56x minus 3x minus 21. Okay, well, 56x minus 3x does give me 53x. So let's go ahead and group them and now factor them. Well, 8x squared and 56x have 8x in common. So I'm going to take that greatest common factor out. That's going to leave me x squared plus 7. Because I know this binomial is factored correctly, I can bring that over here, and I need to take out a negative 3 so that it matches the binomial above. So now I have 8x minus 3 times x plus 7. And don't forget, we were asked to solve or find the roots of this function. So we set it equal to 0. And now we set up our two equations. 8x minus 3 equals 0. And x plus 7 equals 0. I'm going to solve this two-step equation. So 8x equals 3. I'm going to divide by 8. Okay, and so x equals 3/8 on this side. And then over here, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. And so x is equal to -7. So our roots for this function are 3/8 and -7. I hope you have a great day today and you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please click like and subscribe below. Thank you very much and take care.